Hey, I've got a tip for you. Read the Bible like it's fiction. Wait, you're a Bible teacher. You're telling me to read it like it's fiction. Yep, read it like it's fiction. And this is why I say that. It's a borrowed idea, but I want you to think of it this way. When we're reading the Bible, sometimes we see these details that pop up and we're like, oh, I don't know what that means. Must be superfluous, must be extra, must be unnecessary. And so we just move on. Think of it this way. If you're reading fiction and the author is trying to get you to understand the intricacies of the story, he may say something like this. Joe went to the store to buy milk. As Joe was walking down the street, he noticed a shadowy figure in the alley. He shook it off and thought it was nothing as he walked to the store. He grabbed his milk and went home. Now, when we're thinking about that, in the Bible, we just go like, oh, Joe walked to the store, I don't know what that is, and then he keeps going. But if we're reading the Bible like it's fiction, and of course it's not, this is the inspired word of God, but if we're reading it like it's fiction, we're reading like the author is laying some things in there that I need to understand. And I should know about that. So we can't just go through the Bible and read something and go, da, 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 oh, I don't know what that means. And then, oh, just keep going and expect the story to make sense, right? The shadowy figure in the alley is foreshadowing, right? It's the idea the author is trying to get you to understand is that this is going to come up soon. He doesn't just throw in those details just for grins, right? So we need to be thinking about that. Now, speaking of shadows, we are sons and daughters of the Enlightenment. Whether you like it or not, we grew out of this movement in history hundreds of years ago where we say, oh, there's no shadows. We can explain that shadowy figure in the alley. It's nothing. It's nothing, no big deal. And we just kind of move through our life with our science and our arts and our reason and our focus on the individual, trying to get the Enlightenment tried to get this universal answer for everything that's going on through reason, and we've gone off the rails. We've been looking for infallible truths, but not using history, not looking back, not using any sense of tradition or experience. It turns out we end up with this crazy set of beliefs that there is, we think, oh, there's no such thing as supernatural. There's no such thing as spiritual. It's only material. And in this humanist approach to progress, we've lost completely the understanding of the supernatural world. And I know that I struggle with that sometimes. I mean, so you get it, right? At some level, you understand that there's a supernatural thing going on, even with your faith, even with Christianity. But because, we believe in a resurrected Messiah who has ascended to sit at the right hand of the throne of God. That sounds pretty supernatural. And so we're already bought into this. But today's passage in Ephesians we're gonna be walking to the store, and then we're gonna look down a little alley and see a shadowy figure. And instead of just going past it, I want to unpack that for you. I think I owe that to you as a Bible teacher, and you deserve it as a student of the Bible to figure out where does all this fit. So I think you're really going to enjoy our little journey today. So, but let's take our walk to the store. Let's go buy some milk, and let's just see what gives here. So he says, of this gospel, the gospel that we looked at last week, this mystery that now Gentiles, though were following all sorts of other gods, are now in the same family as Jewish people who followed the one true God. And that's a very strange thing. They were on very different trajectories, idol worshiping and running in ignorance, sons of disobedience. And the Jews were the holders of the promise of the Messiah, now revealed in Jesus Christ. Of this gospel, I was made a minister according to the gift of God's grace, which was given me by the working of his power. Then he says in verse 8, to me, though I'm the very least of all the saints, this grace was given to preach to the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ, and to bring to light, to enlighten for everyone what is the plan of the mystery hidden for ages in God, who created all things. so that through the church, the manifold or multifaceted wisdom of God might now be made known to rulers and authorities in the heavenly places. This was according to the eternal purpose that he realized in Christ Jesus, King Jesus our Lord, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through our faith in him. So I ask you not to lose heart over what I'm suffering for you, which is your glory. Okay, so here's the nonfiction read of it. We say, okay, Paul sees that he was very least of the saints. Well, he says that over and over because he persecuted the church. He doesn't feel like he doesn't feel like he's in the right place being lavished with all this riches. He thinks he's the least of saints because he was actually persecuting this way. But I've been given this grace to preach the gospel and to bring to light for everyone. Right, preach the gospel. Everyone, what is the plan of the mystery hidden for ages in God who created all things. And then verse 10 is the center of this. So that through the church, the multifaceted wisdom of God might now be made known to rulers and authorities in the heavenly places. The whole church is the channel through which God is going to make known his wisdom to the rulers and the authorities in the heavenly realms. Well, who are these authorities and where do they rule and for how long? Those are the three questions I want to work through. So who are the authorities? Where do they rule again? And for how long? So let's first just go with where are these authorities? Well, it says in the heavenly realms. Something hidden in God now is made known in the heavenly realms. Well, I figured everybody in the heavenly realms would know what God is doing because he embodies the heavenly realms, but apparently he's kept this secret. Now we've typically understood the spiritual realm as being God and his angels, the Trinity and angels, and Satan and his demons, like these two warring forces. But there is a lot more going on there. And apparently, not everybody was in on the whole plan. Maybe you have echoes of this, as shadows down the alley, where you're thinking, oh yeah, I remember hearing something like the angels long to look into these things. Like, what is going on? What is God up to? As if maybe he hadn't opened it up to everybody. Well, yeah, that's interesting. And what about that statement in Colossians where if they had known, if the dark powers had known that Christ was going to rise from the dead and ascend to the throne and rule everything now, they wouldn't have crucified the Lord of glory. But apparently there was some secret here. These secret plans were made secret even from those in the heavenly realms. It was kept in God. Isn't that what it says here? It says, the mystery hidden for ages in God who created all things, so that the church, through the church, the manifold, the wisdom of God might be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly places. And this is what God had always planned. Okay, so many of you know Satan and demons. You think about that, but where do they dwell? Demons aren't the ones that inhabit idols. They don't reside under the earth. They're not in the heavenlies. So apparently there's something going on in the geography of the cosmic world that we need to understand. And I'm not going to take a deep dive into it, but I do want to open it up. And this would be a great time for you to ask questions. You can ask them in the comments. You can hang out with us in our lobby afterward on Zoom, and we can talk about these things. But I want to open up something to you called cosmic geography. Okay, so this is what we know from New Testament writings that go back into the Old Testament as well about these different Greek words that have different meanings and different usages. So I'll step aside a little bit so you can see a little bit bigger picture here. But we've got rulers. We've got archon, right? Principalities, arche, powers and authorities. That's our word in this passage. Exousia, powers, dunamis, dominions, lords, kyrios, thrones, and world rulers. These are all phrases that have different sorts of meaning throughout the New Testament. Now, exousia is the term most frequently used in the New Testament for power bestowed by an office. And there's human offices like that, but then there's also divine beings, spiritual powers that are considered on thrones over some domain and have authority. And this is linked back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, 8 and 9, where God divided up the nations and split their languages and all that, and then sent them under the rulership of sons of God, of Ben Elim, of divine beings who inhabit the spiritual world and had power over them. This was actually a very common understanding in ancient times, that this nation had their God, this nation had their God. What I've only come to understand in the last few years is that that was God's plan, that he would divide things up that way. I know you look at these books all the time. Let me open Plato. So this was all 400 years before Jesus. And I don't read Plato to say, this is the divine truth. I'm just saying that it was commonly understood that this is how things went. Here in the dialogues to Critias, he says, in the days of old, the gods had the whole earth distributed among them by allotment. There was no quarreling, for you cannot rightly suppose that the gods did not know what was proper for each of them to have, or knowing this, that they would seek to procure for themselves by contention that which more properly belonged to others. They all of them, by just apportionment, obtained what they wanted, and peopled their own districts, and when they had peopled them, they tended us, their nurslings and possessions, as shepherds tended their flocks, excepting only that they did not use blows or bodily force as shepherds do, but governed us like pilots from the stern of the vessel. Anyway, he goes on and he talks about how different gods had different attitudes and all that kind of stuff. That was just the common understanding. If you look back at all the different origin stories of mankind, you see that this nation has their gods, this nation has their gods. But at some level, then, these were the divine family of God that was then allowed to rule. But they ruled corruptly, they ruled unjustly. And so I want to take you to Psalm 82. Psalm 82. Psalm 82 says, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. So some have said, well, these gods are human rulers. But that doesn't make a lot of sense, because the divine council, if we move over to Psalm 89, it says, who in the skies can be compared to Yahweh? Who among the heavenly beings is like Yahweh? A God greatly to be feared in the council of the holy ones, and awesome above all who are around him. This is a divine throne room scene where God is calling those who have ruled the other nations to account. Now remember why they rule the other nations. God said, I'm going to send all the nations packing. They are not pursuing me, and I'm going to start over with one man. Abraham will be my inheritance and my people, my possession, and then I'm going to start a family through him, through which all nations on the earth will be blessed. That's Genesis 12, 1 through 3. So we have Genesis 10 is the Table of Nations. Genesis 11 is the Tower of Babel, where God divorces them, sends them packing, and then starts over with one man and woman and creates an inheritance among them. So that's the apportionment. Deuteronomy 32, 8 and 9 says that God sent them out, but Israel is his portion. So they are now under the rule of all these other divine family, but God, Yahweh, takes one people and makes them his possession. And then through them, all nations of the world are blessed. So here's what Psalm 82 says about how well they did ruling these other nations. God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. So he's calling them to account for their terrible job, giving justice, not giving justice to the poor and the fatherless, the weak, but preferring the wicked people and allowing wickedness to reign in their in their nations, that in those people groups that they've been in charge of. Of course, Yahweh had his plan, and we read it through the whole Bible. This is how you're going to be a people for my name, so that all other nations will see what a good God I am, and my name will be exalted, and then all nations will come and see that Yahweh alone is to be worshipped. But these other powers called other people to worship them instead of the one true God. And so you see this degradation. You see it in Romans chapter 1 as well. Okay, now they're worshiping idols, and so they give themselves up to lusts and sensualities and wickedness, right? So they have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. So verse 6, Psalm 82, I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Right? You're my divine family, but guess what? Nevertheless, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. Right? Your inheritance, your possession was Jacob, was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, their family, and now you're going to inherit all the nations. And how is that process going to take place? How is it going to be that God takes over and brings his rule and reign over all people? Well, we see that in the Christ, the royal Messiah figure who comes on the scene. Right? As he comes, the demons start going, whoa, 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 is this a little bit before the time? Are you seriously going to come and send us to the abyss right now? Because it seems a little early for that. And he said, be quiet. Don't even talk right now. And he'd cast them out. And so there was this power against darkness coming in the work of Jesus. So who are these authorities? Well, they are divine beings and then some sort of bureaucratic structure underneath them that rule the nations and are in charge, but have been corrupted and corrupting, and the foundations of the earth now are shaken. So where do they rule? Well, they rule in the heavenlies, right? And they rule in such a way that their earthly counterparts are corrupted and evil as well. And they rule in all of these different regions, over all these different people. They've created societal structures that are in their image, flat, boring, monochrome, right? All just peoples by themselves, fearing outsiders, one-dimensional, and they marginalize and kill people or groups that don't fit into their narrow band of acceptability. That's the way it goes. And so these cosmic intelligences are to blame for humanity's descent into idolatry. So now these rulers have called worship to themselves. And so now social injustice and misery and corruption and poverty and self-destruction follows on. And it's fed and propelled by powers of darkness, which are very much superior to humans right now. But remember, God is creating a human family that he will then exalt to sit on the throne with him and rule over all things. That's our destiny. Now in Daniel chapter 10, maybe this is one of those ones you read once, and then it was that shadowy figure down the alley, and you said, I don't know about that. Well, in Daniel chapter 10, Daniel's been praying and fasting. He's stuck in Babylon. At this point, is now Persia, and because Persia's taken over, and he's praying and praying and praying, and no answer has been coming. And the answer he gets it in a vision, Daniel chapter 10. Verse 8, so I was left alone and saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me. My radiant appearance was fearfully changed. I retained no strength. Then I heard the sound of his words, right? So this man figure shows up, and he's clothed in linen, and he's shining, and all that kind of stuff. As I heard the sound of his words, I fell on my face in a deep sleep with my face to the ground. And behold, a hand touched me and said, and set me trembling on my hands and knees. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly loved, understand the words that I speak to you and stand upright, for now I've been sent to you. And when he had spoken this word to me, I stood up trembling. And then he said to me, fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I have come because of your words. So this is maybe an angelic type figure. An angel just means messenger, so he's a messenger of God coming to bring an answer to prayer. Think about that. Think about when you're praying right now. This is not an aside. This is not something extra. This is serious. When you're praying right now over the chaos in our nation, over the hurt in people's hearts, over the degradation, over the slurs, over all that, as you're praying and you're aching and you're just saying, oh God, when will you come? Arise, oh God, judge the earth, for you will inherit all the nations. As you're praying, and I hope you're praying those kind of things and deep longing for God to work. You say, where is God? What is he doing? Why doesn't he send a messenger? Well, here, check this out. So he says, oh man, Daniel, greatly loved, don't fear. From the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard, and I've come because of your words. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I was left there with the kings of Persia, and came to make you understand what is to happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision is for days yet to come. Okay. I'm sorry, you didn't get my message? No, I wasn't able to deliver it in time because the king of Persia, the kings of Persia, or the prince of Persia, was withstanding me. The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me for 21 days. What? We could just go past that, but there are territorial divine beings that are so far above us that even angels can't get through unless they go appeal to one of the great princes, Michael, one of the great princes over Israel, over God's inheritance, come and do it. Do you sense that there's something else going on up here of cosmic significance? There's something else going on when you pray that you don't see. You know, we talk about how if God doesn't answer your prayer right away, then maybe it's wait. You know, He answers yes, no, or wait. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes He answers yes, and He sends a messenger, and the messenger gets caught up in some serious traffic. 21 days worth of traffic until he's able to fight his way through, because Daniel's in a foreign land and it's ruled by these kings. And this is why it's so important for us to think. It's so important for us to understand that Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And through his death and resurrection, he has conquered all these enemies. He has put them to open shame, triumphing them over the cross. And he's created his new family of holy ones to rule and reign with him, to bring his kingdom down. This is super important stuff. Remember, who had rightful authority over all the nations? Well, all these other gods, they had their apportionment. And apparently Satan is the one, because he was the one who plunged all of humanity into death, rules over all of them. Remember when Jesus was tempted? He was sent out into the wilderness, and he was tempted, and Satan offered him all the kingdoms of the world if he would just bow down and worship him. Bow down and worship me, says Satan, and you will have all the nations of the world. Well, Jesus had a plan. He knew what his plan was. The Father and the Son and the Spirit had developed this plan. Apparently not many others knew what was going on. And he was going to be crucified, raised from the dead, and exalted to the right hand, and now made ruler over all nations. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, says Jesus. Therefore go make disciples, right? So this rule, so who are the authorities? Well, there's all these different layers of principalities and powers and authorities and thrones and rulers over all these different things. But where do they rule? Well, they rule in the heavens, in that space that we just don't see. It's not necessarily on some distant, it's not like a distant planet. It's all around us, right? And they rule over the terrain that they've had, but then now they've been dethroned. So for how long? How long will they rule? Well, they've been dethroned. Their authority has been taken away. So now we can go to all the nations and say, you no longer have to worship those gods. You no longer are under their authority. You can now call to Jesus. That's what we see in Acts chapter 17. For those of you that are aware of that, that's where Paul says God overlooked these times of ignorance that you have been experiencing. He knows that you have been underneath these different authorities, but now he's called one man to to be the ruler, and he's exalted him by the resurrection so that you know that he is the one to put your focus on. So all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Jesus. Therefore, go and make disciples and reclaim all the peoples. Right? So in Genesis 11, we see the Tower of Babel. We see in Genesis 10, we see all these different nations. What would be curious for you to do is to go through, look at all those nations, and I'll show you an image here. Look at all the nations mentioned in Genesis chapter 10, this table of nations. And then look at what happened in Acts. All of these nations start to get touched on. Every single nation from Genesis chapter 10 is now in Acts chapter, or in the book of Acts. Now remember, in Genesis chapter 11, the tongues were divided. And everybody was divided. And then in Acts chapter 2, divided tongues come and rest, and people start speaking in languages. And it goes throughout. The only nation from Genesis 10 that's not mentioned in Acts is Tarshish, Spain. And what do we know in Paul's writings after he's gone through in Acts and he's reached all these different nations? Where does he long to go? Well, he longs to go to Spain, because I think in his mind, he is trying to wrap up this all call to the nations. Now, of course, there are further nations than that, but I think for Paul, that was his mindset. I've got to get to Spain. I want to continue. I want to close down this thing that all the nations that were divided can now come to me. So this verse 10 in in Ephesians chapter 3 is just critical. I want to read it to you again. Verse 9, he's bringing to light, enlighten for everyone what is the plan of the mystery hidden for ages in the God who created all things, so that through the church the manifold wisdom of God might now be made known to the rulers and authorities in the heavenly places. This was according to the eternal purpose that was realized in Christ Jesus our Lord, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through our faith in him. So I ask you not to lose heart over what I'm suffering for you, which is for your glory. So that verse 10 is probably one of the most powerful statements for why the church exists. Because these rulers that we saw around the throne room in Acts, Psalm 82, they need to be shown what true justice and true humility and true mercy looks like. And it's going to be done through Jesus and through his people. They must be confronted with God's wisdom and all of its richness. And this is going to happen through the church. And not just through what the church says. That's important. But through what the church is, a community in which men and women, children from every ethnicity, every color, every social and cultural background come together in glad worship of the one true God. That is actually putting on display. That's putting it in the face of the authorities, saying God alone is worthy of worship and praise. So by the church's very existence, think about the portent of this, the importance. By the church's very existence, it's supposed to be a warning to the rulers and authorities that their time is up. And it's certainly an announcement to the world that there's a new way to be human. So think about that. Have we as the church in Issaquah exposed to the authorities that their time is up? And have we exposed to the world around that there's a new way to be human? Connected with God, with heaven, seated in the heavenlies, feet firmly planted on earth, walking out this kingdom lifestyle. So there's something truly cosmic, truly cosmically significant that's going on in the church, that we're participating in this grand plan of God to unite all things under Christ's headship and make this known to the heavenly powers and put it in their face. So we are declaring war by doing this. We're declaring war and declaring that their time is up by preserving the unity. God has won a unity for us. He's preserved it. So he's given it to us and we now preserve it. And that is a declaration of war, which means if you've been experiencing what I've been experiencing, division and thoughts and suspicion and all those things, if you've been experiencing that, where is that coming from? Well, it's not coming from God, because he's given us a unifying person in Jesus to focus on. So we declare war by preserving the unity. By being silent no longer, right? We are now proclaiming the kingship of Jesus by the wisdom of the Father through the power of the Holy Spirit, bringing the kingdom of justice and mercy to bear. We are walking this out. The foundations of the world will no longer be shaken, like Psalm 82 says. They will be upheld because the justice is given to the weak and to the marginalized and to the fatherless. So that's what you need to know. So declaring war by preserving the unity, by being silent no longer, proclaiming the kingship of Jesus. And I just want to say one more thing. As the kingdom of God expands, as it takes new terrain, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Right? It's going to, and it's no coincidence that the expulsion of demons from people and places came along with the announcement of the kingdom of God. As the kingdom of God grows, the kingdom of darkness shrinks and loses ground. So here we are, the church. We have three main tasks: worship, oneness, and witness. Worship, oneness, and witness. And it's our job to live that out in such a way that the authorities say, our time is up. And that the people here say, wow, that's a new way to be human.